Hi there, this is Nicole and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be showcasing some brand new Hero Arts release products from the summer catalog with color layering and stenciling cards. I've got 3 cards and 3 matching envelopes to share with you today. We are going to start with the new color layering strawberry, which is gorgeous and beautiful. I absolutely love it. And we're going to be stamping multiples of this image on some Nina Smooth heavyweight cardstock. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my process. I am using a bigger sheet, like a half sheet of cardstock, and I'm simply going to rotate it around so I can create multiples of the color layering strawberry. This is especially important if you want to do something like I'm doing today, where I'm creating an all-over background design. I am using a combination of Hero Hues reactive inks and then some other Hero Arts inks. I just kind of gathered up the right colors and didn't really go for a certain type of ink. I hope that makes sense. I really liked the reactive inks in Key Lime Fizz and Green Apple, so those are the colors I chose for the greenery part of my strawberries. I will say that I found with the reactive inks, I needed to stamp them more than once. That has more to do with the ink properties than actually needing to do that, and that's because when I get to the dye inks, you're not going to want to stamp these more than once unless you just get a really faint light impression. I did do that just kind of out of habit, I guess, of what I had just been doing with the first layer of the strawberries, and it totally smushed out all of the smushed. I guess it's my actual word here is it just got rid of all the detail of the strawberry, like the seeds and things, and it really didn't look good. So I ended up having to restamp that one. No big deal. It is very easy to line these up, I hope, as you notice as we go along. This is the next layer of the greenery. This is the Green Apple reactive ink from Hero Arts. Aren't these colors just beautiful together? I absolutely love them. And as I'm stamping this, can you see the flowers starting to kind of take shape, the little flowers there in the strawberries? I just think it's so sweet and so cute. Then for our next 2 layers, so the strawberries are 4 layers for the color layering. That is the base of the greenery, the detail greenery, the base of the strawberries, which we're stamping next. This is pale tomato ink. And then the detail, or the shadowy part of the strawberries, which is stamped out of strawberry ink. I will have all of these ink colors linked below the video here on YouTube. I will also have them listed out underneath each specific card on my blog if you're looking for a more detailed write-up of that kind of information, and there is a link to that in the description box underneath the video as well. Once we have stamped those strawberries, let's grab the layering piece. This is that 4th layer that I was mentioning. And it's going to create that little shadow detail, which is perfect. This is the strawberry ink we're using for that. The dye inks will fade just a tiny bit. Do keep that in mind. The reactive inks are not. So if that makes a difference, you might want to go and use all dye inks or all reactive inks, whatever you want to do there. Look how pretty. This strawberry up here at the top, that is an example. Actually, both of those are examples of what it looks like if you try to double stamp that first layer of strawberries. Next up, the next new product is the Hero Arts Art Deco Arches Stencil. This gorgeous stencil, I actually stenciled it once already going the other way. I'm sorry I missed that on camera. I stenciled it with Mint Julep Hero Arts ink. I flipped the stencil upside down and then I stenciled it with Tide Pool ink for this beautiful kind of aqua pool colored background, this very Art Deco background that I absolutely love. I did start with a larger piece of cardstock, so this is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. I will tell you that I ended up with a 4 by 5 1/4 inch panel. That's going to give us a nice white border all the way around the background. We're going to start with a combination of sentiments now, another new stamp set. This is the Hero Florals Strawberries line art. What is awesome about this little mini stamp set is it creates line art for the image we just stamped. You can use it with the image. I did not for this card, but you totally could. And the coordinating die works with this image. So you could stamp it with a black ink and color it in if you wanted to, instead of doing color layering. The rest of our sentiment today comes from the color layering strawberries set, that first stamp set we used here today. And I just like the combination of the two sentiments. For whatever reason, I've been really into using multiple sentiments lately, or a lot of sentiments, and you're going to see that on all 3 of my cards today. The other thing I've been doing a lot of is creating coordinating envelopes, and we're also going to create coordinating envelopes. I stamped the main part of the sentiment with black ink, of course, as you can see there, and the rest with that strawberry Hero Arts ink. Now we're going to start building our all over background. I really like the pool color of the minty color of this background against the bright green and reds of the strawberries and leaves. I think it plays off it really nice. It gives it a super fun summery vibe, and it adds interest to the background. Something you're not going to get with just regular ink blending. Ink blending is gorgeous and beautiful, but I love a nice, subtle, stenciled background. So our first card today has got that really subtle stenciling, I guess, going on in the background. And this stencil can be used in so many different ways. It's really, really awesome. Highly recommend this Art Deco stencil. You guys, if you follow me already, you know I really do love my stencils. I think they are just the perfect tool, and everyone is coming out with so many great ones. I have filled in most of the area now, and I trimmed off the excess, and I like to save that and fill in. I actually ended up filling in quite a few little areas along the edges. I'm sharing that so you can kind of see the process. We hardly have any waste this way, plus it fills everything in beautifully. We will just discard the rest of this and then glue our panel to a top fold A2 sized card base, and our card is all finished. It's a very sweet birthday card. For our coordinating envelope, I am taking this beautiful, I believe it's sea glass metallic envelope from Simon Says Stamp. The exact color will be linked below the video here. The thing is it's got a metallic sheen to it. Normally I would use a StazOn ink for this because other inks are going to really smear badly. I have had terrible luck with these, but I'm going to show you a little hack that's going to work perfectly. Even though we're using a combination of reactive ink, which definitely has more of a pigment property to it, and dye ink, and normally you can't heat emboss dye ink, we are going to heat emboss it today. So I'm following the same steps as before with adding all of my ink layering. I'm not adding the embossing powder yet. I could. You could definitely do the greenery, add your embossing powder and go on. But I went ahead and decided to live dangerously today, I guess. And I am going to stamp it all. I'm just kind of being super careful. And especially with the dye ink, you can see that it beads up a little bit, but it's really not going to matter for the finished envelope. I am then going to add my last layer, and then I'm going to grab my Hero Arts clear embossing powder, and we are going to heat emboss this entire image with clear embossing powder on top, making it color safe. It's not going to smear, and it perfectly matches our finished very sweet birthday card. We used 4 brand new products for this card and envelope set here. So definitely check out the supply list below. I have linked to all of these supplies, plus all of the summer catalog release is now available. You can pick up all of these at Simon Says Stamp. I just love how the strawberries look against the light blue of this envelope. Definitely don't be afraid to try color layering over a colored envelope. This is the only colorful envelope I'm doing today. The other two are going to look better on white, and we'll talk about that here as we complete the next two cards. Our next two cards are actually both going to be more of underwater scene cards. We're going to be using the color layering Orca stamp set and coordinating dies first, as well as one of my favorite new stencils. But let's start with doing a little color blending on some smooth white cardstock. We are inking up a 4 by 5 1/4 inch panel with Blue Hawaii and Splash reactive inks. I'm going to work pretty hard to get a nice seamless color blend here. Darker down at the bottom, you know, the closer down to the bottom of the ocean floor is kind of my imagining here. Gets darker and lighter up at the top. Up at the top, we're going to add a little stenciling with a new scene stencil from Hero Arts. So we're going to be doing some stenciling there. We're going to be doing some background stenciling and then some simple sentiments. Again, I'm adding multiple to this card and the awesome color layering Orca. So this is just adding that ink until I get the seamless blend. You'll notice that I start with a little bit lighter hand and gradually build the color up. These Hero Hues reactive inks are some of my very, very favorite ink colors. They have a lot of the same properties as your favorite distress inks. They will react with water. This is why they are called reactive inks. And so they're just another fantastic option. You're also going to see that I'm going to mix these with the black soot reactive ink. Or not reactive ink. How about distress ink? Sorry. So I will be using the oxide black soot ink. I'm using it more for stamping and not ink blending, but you totally could. If you wanted to pull in some black into the edges of this, you could do that with your distress or distress oxide ink and it would work great. Now that we have our background all inked, it's time to take another brand new stencil and add some detail. This is the Hero Arts Waves Scene Stencil. There are waves of all kinds. You can see the top and the bottom have a certain wave. The sides have a different one. Then there are some little squiggly waves in the center, some schools of fish, bubbles. It is a really versatile stencil. I will be using this on the next two cards because there's just so much to use here. Very, very lightly, I am using the splash ink with the more traditional, I guess, kind of wave. I guess both of those waves are kind of, but I'm using it and just very, very lightly inking up some waves up at the top. I want that to kind of be, I'm imagining the top of our water, our ocean, whatever you want to call it. And I did use some Post-it notes to gently or easily mask off some of that other area so I didn't accidentally stencil any of that into the rest of this. Then we are going to remove those and we're going to figure out some placement for the schools of fish in this stencil. I want to use these on the background to build my underwater scene. So I'm blending in with black soot distress oxide ink right over the reactive inks. It's going to give you that beautiful dark black background, perfect that to go with my scene. It makes them show up, gives them that illusion of being kind of off in the distance, and everything is looking good. I stenciled parts of this about 3 places. Then I want to set this aside. And I'm going to set this aside for a good long while. I actually ended up setting it aside overnight. If you want to speed up the process, you could take a heat tool. I generally find time works the best, and that is because we have used reactive inks here, which means they stay wet longer, and I want to stamp and emboss my sentiments, and I don't want my embossing powder sticking to my stenciling or the background. So I ended up letting this sit overnight. I like to fully be transparent with what exactly I did here. So the dry time here is a little bit longer. You can use a heat tool. I don't think I'm patient enough, or maybe I don't dry it enough. I don't always have the best results there. So if I have time, I let mine sit for quite a while. And I like my sleep, so it probably sat for a good 8 hours or more until I got back to it the next morning. Then we are going to do our color layering of our Orca. I am picking Hero Arts inks in Pool. That is the first base color. Navy is the deep dark color, and then the lighter area on the underbelly is Soft Pool. And the first one I didn't get stamped very well. That's why I'm restamping it. I kind of shifted it just a little bit and I wasn't super happy with it. So I went ahead and restamped it. This color layering set has 3 layers to it. Then we will use the coordinating die to die cut this image. Also, there is an image for the additional fish and the turtle. So if you want those to be dimensional, you can do that very easily. I'm actually going to stamp mine directly on the card background and not add any or do any die cutting for those. We're going to run that through our die cutting machine. Then we are going to stamp and emboss the sentiments from the color layering Orca stamp set. I'm using Well, 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 I Heard It's Your Birthday. I think that's hilarious, by the way. I think it's so punny and clever. And then Have a Killer Day. So really cute. I like the combination of these sentiments on this card. I think it just kind of rounds out the design very nicely. I am going to prep my background with a powder tool first to hopefully keep the embossing powder only on the sentiments. I am inking it up with the Hero Arts embossing and watermark clear ink, and then heat embossing with white embossing powder from Hero Arts as well. This is a card that kind of came together in sections, if you will. I knew my general idea, but as I came back to it again the next day and was looking at my background, I knew I wanted to add the small schools of fish from the color layering Orca stamp set somewhere into the design, but then I ended up adding the 2 additional images from it as well, and just kind of playing around with those stamps and getting that all added. And the bright white of the embossed sentiments here really kind of just tie into the design. This panel is slightly smaller than A2 sized, so when placed on a white top fold background, it's again going to have that great white framing all the way around. And I noticed that I didn't quite get a couple of spots embossed very great. I've already done all this work, so I'm just going to take a white pen and kind of draw that back in. Then we want to take the rest of the stamps and ink up the rest of our background before we adhere our Orca in place. We're going to again use the Black Soot Distress Oxide ink to stamp these schools of fish. I stamped it twice, ended up stamping it twice. Then we're going to do our turtle and our additional fish here. I like adding all of these little details into our background. As I'm laying the Orca out, I'm kind of seeing that hold. I'm hoping you guys can kind of see it too, right above its head, where I feel like another small school of fish would really look good. So we will clean, move our stamp, and then stamp that again. And I'm going to use my Orca as a guide for where I want you know, that stamp to go. Then we'll just stamp that, glue that in place, and then we're going to be ready to create the coordinating envelope for this birthday card. So this is going to be one that I feel really needs a white background so that the white areas on our image show up nicely. So I'm using this white Simon Says stamp envelope. It is a nice flat texture. We're not going to have to do any ink setting with a clear embossing ink or anything like that, which I totally love not having to do that. We're going to use our same ink colors in Pool, Navy, and Soft Pool, and we're even going to add a small school of Fish down below with the Black Soot Distress Oxide ink. I absolutely love having a coordinating envelope. Something small like this with the color layering honestly does not take much time. This literally took me just a few minutes to create a beautiful coordinating envelope, but it looks much fancier than what it is. And if you guys have been following me talking about creating coordinating envelopes, you know that I'm all about, I love a coordinating envelope, but I don't want to spend tons of time on something that more than likely is going to get tossed. And so I generally stick to something fairly simple, something stenciled, something like this that's very easy to stamp and very, very simple. But what I love about the color layering stamps is that they end up making it look like it takes much more time than it actually does. Once we get this last little piece of our whale stamped, then I did end up adding that stamped school of fish because I think it fills in that corner nicely. And I love how it ends up kind of framing up. You can imagine where the address is going to go right above that. I just absolutely love, love, love the color layering stamps for decorating envelopes. I think they really work beautifully. Our next card is again going to be an underwater ocean card. We're just going to use some different colors, this time featuring the color layering Royal Angelfish. And we're going to use kind of more aquas with Pool Party and Blue Raspberry for our background. Again, using that same scene building stencil, just use a couple or a couple different images from that to create a different looking background. We're going to start kind of similar to the last card where we ink up the background with some Hero Arts Hero Hues Reactive Inks. We're using Pool Party and Blue Raspberry this time. I absolutely adore this color combination. In fact, both of these blue color combinations, as well as the green that I used for the strawberries in the first card, are some of my very favorites from the Reactive Inks collection. But these look beautiful together, and it's going to create a little bit more of that, you know, teal aqua-y type of a background that I think that our stamped image is really going to pop. Once we have a beautiful blended background, we are going to take our same brand new stencil and we are going to stencil some like little watery lines in the background, but I want these to be a little less perfect than maybe what you've seen. So this is again the Waves Scene Building Stencil, and I am going to take both the Blue Raspberry and Pool Party inks, and I found, especially with this image, that dabbing it worked a little bit better, but I'm not going to stencil it perfectly. I have it kind of hanging off the side, and I'm even going to go back over the image with my ink blending brush afterwards to soften those lines more. I want it to kind of look like it's off in the distance. I don't want it to be quite as prominent. And then I'm going to use Pool Party for the next two set of lines because it's further up in the card. We're getting a little higher, and I don't want it to be that harsh Blue Raspberry over the Pool Party color of the background. We'll just do one more set. Again, I'm kind of just dabbing it. That's going to work the best. And then blend out those edges, and it's starting to look like an ocean scene. Now I'm just going to take my Royal Angelfish and I am going to lay it out, and then I'm going to take my Waves Scene stencil with the bubbles, and I'm going to kind of figure out where I want those to go. And I want those to be inked in white. Well, the Hero Hues Reactive Ink in Sea Salt is perfect for this. I'm kind of doing a combination of traditional blending and then just kind of dabbing because I want there to be a little bit more prominent. And I'm going to ink those pretty much all the way up the panel there, and they look amazing in real life. I love those little sea salt bubbles. Before we get to our color layering, we are going to do a couple more things here. One of them is adding our sentiments. And I knew before I even started this card that I wanted another sentiment heavy design. All of our sentiments are from the same stamp set. We're going to do "You Are Officially the Best." I think that is so cute, by the way. And then "I hope all of your fishes come true." We are actually going to kind of buddy those up, all up at the top. And it's going to be a little bit more simpler of a design, but all of these extra little steps of stenciling in the background, adding the little waves, adding the bubbles, we're going to add some fish down here along the bottom, and then our ink choices up top, I think really help kind of make this a much more interesting card than it could be. So what I mean by that is we're going to stamp our sentiment, and I did end up masking off parts of this particular sentiment so that the word fishes would stand out. I stamped it with the blue raspberry reactive ink. So I'm using Post-it notes to mask off the rest of the sentiment right now. Then we will mask off each of those sections and stamp the rest of this one, since this is all one phrase. It's 3 different stamps that we're using, but this is all one. And we are going to stamp the rest of it with the Black Soot Distress Oxide ink. And that's going to be "I hope all of your," and then "come true." Then the next 2 lines of text are going to go up above this, and we're just going to start with those and stamp them one at a time. I did that part off camera. That was both in the blue raspberry reactive ink. I am now stamping my Royal Angelfish. I stamped the outline with Black Soot Distress Oxide ink. And then we are going to stamp our first layer with Butter Bar ink from Hero Arts. So this is a 4-step image as well. It's the outline and then 4 layering pieces. For our first layer, again, it's going to be the yellow Butter Bar ink. Then we're going to use Tangerine for the next layer. I did stamp this twice. I hadn't used this stamp yet, and I don't think it stamped super great the first time, so that's why I ended up having to stamp that more than once. I wanted the coverage to be good. Here is the Tangerine. And look at those stripes come to life. Isn't that amazing, you guys? I love it. And then finally, I did use a little pale tomato for the rest of the image down below, which makes it a little bit deeper, darker. I say red, but I think it's a little bit, it looks orangey to me. So just lining up that last piece and then stamping that, and then we can die cut our angelfish with the coordinating die for our card. And then I noticed that the face didn't stamp very well, and so I ended up, I'd already left the outline in my MISTI. I just re-stamped it because the mouth of the fish didn't stamp. So as I die cut my angelfish and I lay it on my card, I really feel like there needs to be something else along the bottom edge. you could do a couple of different things here. I'm going to use the stencil, but I also think the schools of fish from the color layering Orca set would work really nice as well. This time though, instead of inking the school of fish with the black Distress Oxide ink, we're actually going to do the blue raspberry ink. So it's going to be a little bit more subtle and not quite so prominent. Just another way to ink up that school of fish, add some detail to the design. They're going to be going all the way across the bottom of our card panel, which I think looks really nice down below our angelfish here. So we'll just lay out our stencil. I love how many different types of borders and images you get in this one stencil. I think if you love creating underwater ocean scenes, which I seem to create a ton of them with all different brands, this is a fantastic stencil. I highly, highly recommend it. Now, I felt like some of the eye detail got lost. I did go in with a black jelly roll pen and add some detail back in, and then a white pen to get a little bit more detail. And then we're going to glue this down and adhere the whole panel to a white top fold card base. For our coordinating envelope here, this is another white envelope, and it's specifically white because I want the stripes in the fish to show up. So I am going to stamp my fish just like before. We have our black soot outline. We're going to have our butter bar layer, our tangerine layer, and our pale tomato layer, and then we're going to add stenciling to finish off our little mini scene down here in the bottom left corner of the envelope, which I think is really, really fun. And this kind of combines my two favorite ways of creating coordinating envelopes for cards: color layering and stenciling. So they work really nicely together. Don't be afraid to stencil over it. I'm not even going to mask this fish at all. I don't think you necessarily need to. I used very, very light pressure when inking. I don't even know that I really re-inked my blending brush from using it for, you know, all of the other things on our card. I didn't feel like it was necessary. Oh, I guess I did ink it up a little bit, but we're going to just very gently ink up a few bubbles, not all of them, just a few, very, very soft. And then we're going to use the little squiggly waves that we used for our background, and very gently, again, not perfect with these either, but kind of in the front and behind, to finish off our envelope. And how cute is that? I absolutely love how the envelope turned out. Here is a look at all three finished cards again. We have our color layering Royal Angelfish, our color layering Orca, and finally our color layering Strawberry stamp set. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for this card and envelope showcase featuring new Hero Arts Summer 2021 release products from the brand new catalog. The supplies I use to create my cards and envelopes are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here is another video featuring Hero Arts products that you might be interested in. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell to never miss a new card making video. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.